the things that you brought up, yes, I was wrestling with them in my head and stuff. The hero point thing, yeah. There are too many in play at the moment for you guys. And what it does is it actually diminishes the aggravation pool. Like the aggravation pool should just be pounding.
You mean antagonist?
Yeah, antagonist pool. Right. Yeah,
antagonist pool. Although I get it. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what it's called in Mythic D6. That's what I called it, was aggravation, because it would just completely aggravate.
Right.
It's like, I'm doing an aggravated situation.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't another mechanic that I was missing.
No. It's aggravation, antagonist pool.
Okay.
But, same thing. Basically to make that thing more menacing, because, yes, the dice will work with you most of the time. The dice are, not your enemy. Right. It's what the dice results are. That's where if I'm understanding you correctly, needs to have more of a menace to it. The result, not necessarily the dice themselves or the hero points
or the numbers in and of themselves. Yeah, the plot, the fiction, impact of failures.
Right.
The thing I'm thinking of in particular is that it doesn't mean that I dread. My fun-having self should not dread any outcome of the dice, right?
Yeah.
If it did, then I should go do something else. A person could do anything else for fun. They don't have to do this, right? So you shouldn't be doing something where a number of guaranteed outcomes are sort of also guaranteed to be unfun. So I'm not talking about my fun-having self. That person shouldn't be dreading any outcome of the dice, but in terms, if I identify with my character and what they want in the moment, what bad things I don't want to have happen to them, then that should, I should be looking at a very different scenario in terms of what actually happened. In retrospect, I look back and I say, wow, if we made 50 rolls during the course of this game, which ones were failed and which and in what order should produce a completely different story. Right. That's what I'm getting at. So it's, and since we're not playing the kind of game where you can just, flip the backstory around to do whatever you want. So it's not like if we roll this way, then he's at the warehouse. And if he rolls this way, then he's on top of the, that's not what I mean. I'm talking more in terms of we look back and say, wow, this is what we succeeded and failed at. And that's why we ended up where we did.
Right.
At any given point. Now, there is one other minor question, and it's not a critical one or even intended to make you reconsider anything so much as just I wanted to know. The rule for Kieran's character's disadvantage of having sort of a lover in every port situation. The rule for that is that he can appropriate any NPC he wants for this.
No, he can't just. But what I decided to do with it, as a GM, is it's like, okay, her, but since it's a disadvantage, it's not a benefit.
Right. Right. I get that, but what does the rule actually say?
The rule is basically you get to activate the disadvantage. And if you activate the disadvantage, then we work, you and I, as, player, GM, or two players, I guess, work out what happens or what that disadvantage is. Just like with, your hedonism.
Right. But,
we work out what it is.
Right. But in this case, it's the idea that he's got all these ex-lovers around, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the scattered through the centuries or scattered through the locations and so on. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's the way. If he wrote lover in every port or whatever, then potentially he, wherever you guys go, there could be someone there that he knows.
Right. But the idea here is that you had a non-player character who was named and had an agenda and had stuff to do. And I'm just going to give you an example from the long history of Trollbabe. When I first wrote the game and was playtesting it, somebody appropriated, there was a rule that you can make a relationship out of anybody. And the player chose somebody that I was already heavily committed to as a game master.
Right.
And
Right.
and I realized this was bad design. It actually created an authority problem over certain aspects of the setup.
Right.
And so I made a distinction in the rules between named versus unnamed characters. And you only
Okay.
start with so many, only a few who are named. Everybody else,
Right.
you name as they appear and as you feel like you need a name, and you have a names list.
Okay.
But the character as brought in, the blacksmith or whatever, he doesn't have a name to start.
Right.
You know he's going to get one, but you don't give him one now. And
Right.
so the rule is that they can make a relationship out of anyone who's unnamed.
Okay.
And
Right.
and therefore you've kind of got your sort of safe from appropriation NPCs in play.
Right.
That you can drive into as game master with backstory, agendas, concerns, and emotions ready to go.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that out as a potential mechanic because, far as I can tell, this isn't a game where the players have kind of a on the spot situational authority over very many things.
Right.
We have a lot of creative input into play, especially in terms of agendas and things like that. And some of it's rolled and some of it's choice and all that. But we don't have that kind of co-GMing regarding non-player characters' goals and things to
Right.
do. And so the ability to do that in that particular case sort of stood out for me.
Right. Yeah. To me, it's one of those things where it will never play to his benefit to have her. So let's say, for instance, this was not, again, going back to what I originally said, if this was a game that we played and it was allowed to breathe, because a lot of like one-shot games or online games, they're not allowed to be proven. If you were baking a thing of bread, they don't get to prove. They don't get to rise. They don't get to bake. They get to basically you get a cookie. Right, you do not get a fluffy like piece of bread because you don't have enough time to let it. So
I've
it's like
I've been kind of getting away from that. Fortunately, my online play has managed to get away from that, but I understand exactly what you mean. I love your analogy.
Right. Yeah. So it's like in a normal game, I should say, well, what is normal now, but in the games that I enjoy playing, there's a room to breathe.
Right.
So now that he's stated, okay, she's one of my ex-lovers, and she's a disad now, instead of just being, I'm the men in black government guy, whatever, this character now has legs. This character will show up again.
Right.
And
I
stuff.
completely understand the benefit of it, but it is definitely a different mechanic from most of the other ways that we interact with the setting. So it might just be worth looking through the rules and saying how many of those are there and how are they distributed, for example, across the different archetypes or the different concepts. Just nobody. How many is a player allowed to make like all three disadvantages like that? Isn't that a whole lot of like setting levers that player has? Maybe they are. Maybe, but and does a player know that that's a special thing when they take that disadvantage? Or does the player think that they have that power and the GM turns around right there in the middle of the second session and says, oh, no, that's not how it works. And the player's like, I've been looking forward to this the whole time. I was going to make that character my lover, right? And the GM,
no, just make it implicit.
Right.
Make it implicit what can and cannot be done with a relationship disadvantage.
Particularly, because it is, as I say, a distinctive thing. It's not, and there's nothing else in the game that does that. I mean, if it does it, that's fine. Right. It's a special thing. I get that, right? and everybody can have a relationship disadvantage, so that's kind of fun. That everybody's got like kind of one way to kind of jiggle the situation,
Right.
From a game master standpoint.
You've given me some homework, some bullet points to look at, and go back through another iteration, because basically every time like I'll play the game, there are notes. Right. Then it's like, okay, go through, always. tighten up. Yeah. And so no, the double one thing, yeah, that one I think I'll have fun with making that one a kick in the teeth, because
gotta have something in there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did also want to say that I really, really like the way that Paradox Force seems to have come together, especially because, unless I'm mistaken, there's just enough drive, and you were talking about the vibe at the table. If you look at the recording of play, you'll actually see that Renee and Kieran and I are actually making eye contact and doing little head gestures at each other, all those things that I was afraid that on-screen play, online play would lose. And I've found that as long it's tiring, it's more tiring, but I've found that you can maintain that. It won't go away. If everybody wants to do it, it won't go away. So you can see us doing that. And although the characters are, like, as I like to call it, a nice solid 2 dimensions, as they should be, right? A nice solid 2 dimensions. There's enough drive there that they're not 1 dimension.
Right.
And there's room, so that this is maybe a little too metaphysical, but if you have several 2-dimensional objects, sometimes the way they lean together creates 3 dimensions.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally get it, man.
Yeah, and I feel that kind of everybody's going, we're not going to force it, but that can happen.
Yeah, no. To me, it's a stone soup. Yeah. It's like everyone's brought a particular ingredient, and you've made an entire soup by this, and this, and that's what tickles me, and that's one thing I love about actual play that's extended and not just one shots, is that I've literally got folders of old games that I could go back and go, oh guys, remember this?
Oh yeah.
And like I've got one game, I have a running XP chart where I can go, that right there is when we did this, those XPs.
Oh, you and I have very similar documentation. I completely understand. So cool.
But
I need to go. So thanks a lot for the time, actually.
No, thanks, man. You've given me something to like look at, considering I just got back like another edit of the manuscript. Now I can go back in and drive the editor crazy again by going, okay,
that's right.
And make another pass, but look at what I just put in there.
Right.
And
see. That's the job.
But no, beautiful. All right then, sir. I will see you later.
Take care, Jerry.